COVID created an environment on the roads that was actually, frankly, much more dangerous than the environment that we had pre-COVID. You have higher incidence of speeding, and we measured the highest degree of distraction relative to the number of miles that we've ever seen last April, as COVID was just starting to create lockdowns here in the US. And that focus on technology has distracted individuals away from their responsibility on the road.
Welcome back to the Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT and digital transformation.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Peggy Smedley Show. I'm your host, Peggy Smedley. My next guest's background has taken him to the heart of the road safety issues. His work in the insurance industry led to a telematics-based incentive program that rewards U.S. drivers for safe behaviors and a product that does that as well. In his current role, he is focused on delivering the company's mission of making the world's roads and drivers safer by supporting partners and stakeholders around the globe. Please welcome Ryan McMahon, Vice President of Insurance and Government Affairs for the Cambridge Mobile Telematics. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Peggy, thank you for having me.
So Ryan, I'd love for you to give our listeners a little bit about your background and why it led to distracted driving and why that's so important to you, because I think it's a very important topic right now this month, especially Distracted Driving Awareness Month.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy. And I think that the road safety became something that was important to me early on. While I was going to college, I volunteered as an EMT for a rescue squad in a very rural part of New York, and I got an opportunity to see the impact that unsafe driving had directly on the community. And as a result of that, it brought my attention to ways that different technologies and approaches can enhance roadway safety and how that becomes a part of our daily life. And I joined the insurance industry from that time. And when I was in the insurance industry, I worked directly with individuals that had gotten into crashes and to help them recover after that. And from that point, in various different roles in the industry, it led me to create a program with a number of other professionals that leveraged technology that was already in the marketplace to provide incentives to drivers for driving safely. And it seems like something that's, very easy to think through that, of course, insurance companies want to reward people for driving safe. But the challenge behind that is, how do you know what's safe? How do you do it at a scale that enables you to make it available to as many drivers as possible? How do you make it economically valuable? And how do you make it important enough to a driver that they are willing to pay attention to elements like distracted driving and other road safety issues that have just become part of their everyday commute?
Well, you and I both know 1 out of 4 people text every day. So when they're driving, more specifically. And I always say with great technology comes great responsibility. So I really want you to dive into it a little bit more as you talk about what led you actually specifically to a telematics-based incentive program that now has a product, because I think that's what we have to get to the heart of, because we need something that gets people in the insurance industry to actually use a product that we can eye and specifically look that gives clear expectations and performance that measures something now that people are actually seeing and understanding how they're measured.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. In fact, our data actually shows at CMT that distracted driving actually may be even worse than 1 in 4. We look at that number to be actually closer to maybe just shy of 2 in 4, and it's something that is so part of our daily lives as commuters, as people that use the road. And what's interesting is a number of years ago, about 12 years ago, there was research done out of MIT by 2 professors, Dr. Hari Balakrishnan and Dr. Sam Madden at the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. And they partnered with Bill Powers to create the company that I work for now, Cambridge Mobile Telematics. And what they did is they determined that you could use the sensors on a smartphone to determine when someone is driving safely or not, based on elements like speeding, hard braking, hard cornering. And then, of course, over time, then distracted driving became a key issue. the insurance industry became aware of this technology, and companies around the globe started to adopt that technology and build it into their offerings to consumers. And now, today, there are many, many insurance companies that offer telematics-based incentive programs, and they range all the way from programs that provide discounts up to 50% off a driver's premium if they drive safely, including not driving distracted, all the way down to providing weekly rewards to individuals to create something that is a little bit more habit forming, to giving drivers something in return for their attention. And of course, all of those elements create a benefit for the driver because no one wants to get into a crash. But oftentimes the challenge with distracted driving comes to a point where individuals are really not sure how severe their actions can be as a result from taking their attention away from the road. And we see this in the technology itself. And as a result of that, the insurance industry is really gotten behind this technology because they see the benefits directly in their financial results. The consumer, the driver gets a benefit because they're receiving a reward or a discount off of their insurance. And of course, everyone that uses the road is now better off for it because now we have drivers that are putting their eyes where they need to be as opposed to on their smartphone.
So let's look at it right now. We've talked about this. In 2020 was a horrible year for distraction and deaths. But the numbers just in 2019, and I know you have this on your website as well, that U.S. drivers were distracted by their phones at least 41% in daytime drives. That number is horrific, okay? So why is telematics so important right now to use it? I mean, why have we come to this point? We've been talking about it for a very long time, but why are telematics-based incentive programs, or just telematics in general, so critical now?
I think it's important because technology has become a bigger portion of our lives. So much more of what we do, whether it be banking or communications or school, is now done through technology, where that wasn't the case even 5 or 6 years ago. Of course, COVID accelerated a lot of this, and COVID created an environment on the roads that was actually, frankly, much more dangerous than the environment that we had pre-COVID. You have higher incidence of speeding, and we measured the highest degree of distraction relative to the number of miles that we've ever seen last April, as COVID was just starting to create lockdowns here in the US. And that focus on technology has distracted individuals away from their responsibility on the road. And because it's one of those behaviors that doesn't necessarily, immediately create risk for that driver that they perceive, it becomes this self-reinforcing mechanism. So what the technology does is it provides a little reminder. So it's not stopping an individual from using their phone directly, because there are technologies out there that do that. The challenge is that people just turn it off. People turn off the features that shut down all the cell phone access. And of course, the challenge behind that is, how do you create a technology that a driver will use while at the same time creating a culture of safety? And what we do is we're measuring that risk for a driver after every trip. They get a notification with a map that shows exactly how safe their drive was on a scale of 1 to 5, measured by stars. And then they can see exactly where on that trip they were distracted. And once you start to visualize it, it becomes something that drivers can internalize. And frankly, they take that and change themselves. But even that's not enough. We take it a step further, and we work with the insurance industry and other stakeholders that provide incentives to drivers for reinforcing behaviors that are consistent with road safety. So it's a counter to that focus where all of our attention moves to technology. It now gives another incentive, another tool, another reminder to get people to move away from those things that are hazardous to our health.
I think we also now have to take into consideration, it's not just texting, but we have to add texting and the drug impaired now. I mean, that's another element that we have to add to all of this, because we think about harsh braking, acceleration, cell phone use, fatigue, lack of seatbelt use. We still have 10% of people who don't use their seatbelts. That's fascinating to me, to think in a day and age people still don't use their seatbelts. So tailgating, there's a lot of different elements at play here? All of these things come into when you think about all of this and the technology you're talking about. Are all of these things a part of this when you think about reduction in injury and safety?
Yeah, I think that there's a large number of items that contribute to our safety on the road. The biggest is if you look at what NHTSA reports on, the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency, when they report on causes of crashes, the vast majority, I think it's higher than 96% of crashes are due to driver error. So the challenge is, how do we identify those driver errors, and then how do we provide feedback to those drivers and then incentives to them to then remove the behaviors that that lead to crashes. And that's what our focus is on. So we measure all these behavior elements that contribute towards crashes, and the goal is to prevent them from even happening in the first place. But even if they, you can do a lot of this, but eventually you do have crashes that still occur. And what we've seen happen over the last few years is the technology's evolved to the point where if someone gets into a crash, there can be an emergency notification, and there's emergency services that are dispatched to the scene within about a minute of that crash happening. That's all possible through our cell phones today. So it's amazing to think how the cell phone is really a big contributor to roadway risk over the inception of the technology, but it's now getting to the point where it's actually serving as the solution inside of that larger risk pool. And the more that we can do to identify what those behavior items are that lead to crashes and provide incentives to drivers to reduce those, the safer the road gets. And we also have that safety net underneath us that if something does go wrong, we can get help sooner rather than later.
Do we have to look at drivers right now as being complacency, that they're unaware of the actual dangers when we think about it right now? I mean, because we have to think the numbers. If we think of 3,142 people were killed, what do we have to keep doing here? I mean, we're saying we can do these reward programs, and is that enough? I mean, we still have way too many people dying. I mean, when I add all these up every year, and I think we talk about how many people died of COVID, that still isn't enough for people to understand. We worry about that, but we're still going. We don't realize when we take our eyes off the road and our hands off the wheel, we're driving a machine. We're operating a machine, and we're killing people.
It is scary to think about it. And the challenge for the roadway safety is really no one is immune, because even if you yourself are a very safe driver, you are sharing the roads with individuals that could get very complacent. Our technology is being used by the majority of the major insurers in the US and across the globe, but it's still not necessarily the default. So the majority of people that are buying insurance today probably aren't aware that they can get incentives for driving safely. They're probably not aware that they can receive discounts on their insurance premium as a result of these type of things. And as that becomes a bigger portion of the premium that a driver pays, I think it becomes a reinforcing technique that helps really build this culture of safety. The challenge with roadway safety now is much of the work to make our road safer is built on enforcement. And I think that the number is something around 20 million traffic stops occur annually in the US. And despite the 20 million traffic stops, you still have the horrific number of crashes. I mean, you talked about the number of fatalities. There's also an exceptionally high number of injuries. And some of these are life-altering injuries. So the key behind this, I think, is a holistic approach that involves multiple different systems. Of course, enforcement is critically important. Laws are critically important. But also, we find that communication is key. When a law changes in a state, when distracted driving laws change from something like a handheld ban from a texting ban, then what we see in the data is that as soon as the communication around that law starts, we start to see drivers improve. And then that, as we get further away from that communication and reinforcement, then the behaviors sort of start to return back to where they were before. So the key that we believe is how do you get this to the point where a driver is incentivized, they're aware, there's reinforcement techniques that are available to drive safety, as opposed to it just being how does someone look out for police in order not to get stopped.
Ryan McMahon, Vice President of Insurance and Government Affairs at Cambridge Mobile Telematics. Thank you for your time. Where can our listeners go to learn more about what you guys are doing?
check us out at cmt.ai.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan. All right, listeners, that's all the time we have for today. What I want you to do is tweet at me at ConnectedWMag. Remember, we are broadcast live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central. Check out our website at connectedworld.com or our show website at thepeggysmedleyshow.com. This is The Peggy Smedley Show, the podcasting voice of IoT and digital transformation. And remember, with great technology comes great responsibility. Keep those eyes on the road and hands on the wheel. All right, have a great week.